to empower less privileged Nigerians through the National Social Investment Program, which is the rationale, as I said, given for the major increment.
And the 2021 appropriation bill tagged Budget of Economic Recovery and Resilience has 4.1 trillion naira allocated to capital expenditure. Recurrent expenditure stands at 5.6 trillion naira, while statutory transfer is 496.5 billion naira.
Now, the legislature maintained the benchmark of $40 per barrel for crude oil, with a production of 1.8 million barrels per day, while the exchange rate is pegged at 379 naira to the US dollar.
So when will the 2021 budget implementation begin, considering the fact that the 2020 Appropriation Act lifeline was extended by 3 months? What are the considerations in arriving at the increase in the 2021 appropriation bill? How would the increment be generated?
Now, how realistic is also the exchange rate pegged at 379 naira to the US dollar, as well as the price of crude oil put at US $40? And what should be done to ensure full implementation of the budget? There are, of course, a number of issues that will arise for conversation, as we'll discuss this morning. The 2021 appropriation bill passed by the two chambers of the National Assembly and will therefore now be transmitted to the President for his consideration and assent. It's Good Morning Nigeria today, and I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I say welcome to the program.
And I'm Jumo Yusuf, welcoming you to Good Morning Nigeria today. We are reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. As usual, we have our complimentary segments, which includes newspaper review, business, and all this. Let's now join Noleen Abel-Ameh for the Good Morning News. Noleen, good morning.
Good morning to you, Juma and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the news. Following the successes of Exercise Sahel Sanity in the northwest region of the country, the Nigerian Army has extended the duration of the operation by 3 months. The exercise, which began in July, was built to terminate in December 2020, but will now end in March 2021. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, announced this while on operational visit to the Nigerian Army Special Super Camp in Faskari, Katsina State. Success recorded, the Army Chief notes, is a demonstration of high-level collaboration between the Army, other services and security agencies in ongoing operations to further stabilize the zone.
The high points of this success was the rescue of the 344 boys of students of Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, Katsina State. And of course, it shows the collaborative efforts of all the services and the security agencies in this fight against banditry and other criminalities.
The Directorate of Defense Media Operations, DMO, says the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole has dealt yet another blow on insurgents operating in the northeast of the country, with the elimination of Boko Haram terrorists and destruction of their gun trucks at Ajiri in Borno State. Defense Media Coordinator Major General John Enenche says this was achieved on the night of 19th December 2020, sequel to reports that the terrorists in about 7 gun trucks had attempted to breach Ajiri, a settlement in Mafa local government area of the state. Nigerian Air Force helicopter gunships engaged the terrorists, destroying 2 of the gun trucks and neutralizing several terrorists. Now to health. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has advised all government staff on grade level 12 and below at federal and state levels to stay at home for the next 5 weeks as part of measures to curb the second wave of the pandemic in the country. Chairman of the task force and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa at Monday's national briefing says permanent secretaries and chief executives will be held accountable for enforcing COVID-19 protocols.
The head of service of the Federation will be issuing out notices to this. As an advisory, we're also asking the states to consider that so that they can decongest their offices and reduce the volume of people coming to work so that we can effectively interrupt the spread and transmission that is taking place now.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has announced 356 new cases of COVID-19 in 14 states and the FCT. Of this number, 79 are in FCT, 59 in Lagos, 56 in Kaduna, 30 in Nasarawa, and 25 in Kano states. Others are 18 in Edo. Gombe has 14 new infections, Kebbi has 12, Akwa Ibom, Rivers and Sokoto have 7 each. Abia has 3, while Ogun and Cross River states have 1 each. With these new figures, Nigeria has 78,790 confirmed cases of COVID-19, out of which 68,483 were treated and discharged, while 1,227 died of the virus. 3 weeks after the Senate approved the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines, leadership of the Senate and its committees on health have met with the Minister of Health and other concerned persons towards ensuring even access and maximum benefits of the vaccines. At the meeting, which also had the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, as well as members of Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in attendance, the Senate leadership demanded to know plans put in place for the procurement and cost of the vaccines.
B, to negotiate bulk procurement directly from manufacturers who are not yet committed or who can have excess capacity. C, to raise the finances to procure and secure vaccine rights. Raising resources from World Bank and the Afrexim Bank and from country contributions. Choose the one that you think is going to be better for us.
The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency explained that it has embarked on sensitization to dissuade members of the public from negative perception of the vaccine. Cancer is a major health problem with minimal treatment and control facilities in sub-Saharan Africa. This is largely due to the continuous rise in the number of cases and death from the disease. Towards bridging the gap and ensuring access to affordable treatment, Kano State government is establishing a world-class cancer center, which is expected to take off by the middle of 2021.
The harmful effect of radiation, if at any point in time it got leaked, it has a very harmful effect on the entire community. So that is why the construction is highly specialized. You need a specialized engineers.
This bunker will not allow any radioactive rays to come out. It will only be used to treat the patients.
Away from health, the federal government has endorsed a 3 weeks extension for subscribers with NIN from 30th December 2020 to 19th January 2021, while a 6 weeks extension has been approved for subscribers without NIN from 30th December 2020 to 9th February 2021. A statement by the National Task Force on National Identification Number number and SIM registration indicates that the decisions were reached after a meeting chaired by the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Isa Ali Pantami, with major stakeholders in the sector. The statement also says NIMC has provided strategies to enable citizens attend the registration in full compliance with COVID-19 protocols, particularly the use of face mask, which remains mandatory, and maintenance of social distancing. While appreciating Nigerians for their patience and commitment to update their identities, the federal government also thanks all stakeholders for their compliance with the directives. Meanwhile, USSD and verification charges remain suspended during these extensions. And that's the morning news for now. The program continues with Jumayan Kinsley after the break.
A scorecard like no other. Government has put in place measures and initiatives principally targeted at youths, women, and the most vulnerable groups in our society. These included broad plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. The creation of 75 billion naira National Youth Investment Fund to provide opportunities for the youths, and the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Survivor Fund, through which government is A. paying 3-month salaries of the staff of 100,000 micro, small and medium enterprises. B. paying for the registration of 250,000 businesses at the Corporate Affairs Commission. C. giving a grant of 30,000 naira to 100,000 artisans and guaranteeing market for the product of traders. These are in addition to many other initiatives such as farmer money, trader money, market money, N-Power, N-Tech, and N-Agro. These and more in spite of a recession and a global pandemic. Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency. The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Life can be very eventful. We curiously expect things to happen, even when we don't know what. Our human nature makes us like and repost lots of information. Some are unverified, inciting anger and hate. Sometimes innocently, other times the urge to break it first. This, in most cases, has caused destruction in many nations.
Is brought to you by Access Bank, Baba Ijebu, Lipton, and and Close Up in association with Gold.com.
Welcome back. With few days to Christmas, traders decry low patronage in some markets around the FCT. Jumobi Walter in Nigeria has more on business news.
Traders at the Dawaki Ocho Modern Market have been lamenting low patronage as very few people were seen inside the market making purchase few days to the Christmas celebration. Some of the traders say it is part of the impact of COVID-19 on the economy.
My dear, make I tell you as things they happen. Last year, we've been sell well past this year. Coronavirus really affects business this year. Things and people know they enter well as they take enter last year.
You can see everywhere is quiet, seems quiet. There's not much activity going on here. So what it means is that there's low capacity to purchase. There's no money. So even those selling, you can see them just sitting and watching. So
I came to buy Christmas things, and my mom and my dad came here to buy a red shoe for me.
Meanwhile, trading on the floor of the capital market has continued its show of resilience, with the market closing the first day of the Christmas week inching up by 1.74% and an all-share index of 37,444.40 basis points. Here is a graphic representation of closing figures at the floor of the exchange. With business news, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Many thanks, Chimobi, for the business package. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
Now, newspaper reviewer Bayo Tilby is in the studio. Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you, Juma. Good to see you. Good to see you too. Good morning, Kinsley.
All right, Bayo. Good to see you. That's right. Juma?
Yeah, so we begin the review this morning with the Punch newspaper. And just above the masthead, we have NNPC's gas handling facility begins operations, reduces flaring. You find details on page 18. National Assembly jacks up budget, passes 13.5 trillion 2021 appropriation bill. Details on page 17. Nigeria facing worst security challenge in history. That's attributed to Gombe State Governor. You find details on page 9. Federal government ASU meet today. Ngige confident vaccines resume January. You find details on page 25. And the bold headlines we can see there is on the NIN registration. NIN, confusion as Nigerians storm NIMC centers shun COVID-19 rules. With rider, subscribers accuse Lagos NIMC officials of demanding bribes. Government extends SIM linkage to NIN deadline till January. Federal government restricts religious, sporting gatherings, Yuletide parties, orders. You find details on page 2 and 7. And you see the picture story there telling the reality as it is. Large crowd of people not minding, COVID-19 protocols there. I wonder if this will go on smoothly. Subscribers at the National Identity Management Commission office allow Lagos and the Abuja office of the commission on Monday. Down after the picture story, 11 core members test positive for COVID-19 in Taraba. You find details on page 2. Blasphemy. IGP ordered to release Facebook user detained since February. Details on page 8. If soldiers can't secure 20 kilometers from Maiduguri, how can they defend us? That's attributed to Governor Professor Umara Zulum, Borno State Governor. You find details on page 8. At the bottom plate of the Punch newspaper, Assembly passes bill proposing life imprisonment for Nasarawa rapist. You find details on page 8. Military recovers 3 decomposing bodies in southern Kaduna. Details on page 11. And North Central seeks federal government support on deploying technology against insecurity. You find details on page 11. Kinsley?
All right. We also take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. And below the nameplate, it's the headline, NIN, that's National Identification Number. Federal government extends deadline as phone users storm NIMC offices. Task team on Apapa gridlock disbanded. That's on page 17. The latest story is on the budget, and it says federal government tasked on prudence as National Assembly raises budget to 13.58 trillion naira. With 3 riders, legislators increase own budget by 6 billion naira. Debt servicing to GOP 3.3 trillion naira. Experts apprehensive about revenue target and debt servicing. You have the details on page 4. There are 2 photographs there on the front page. One of them is inset, and the caption reads as follows. Residents of Jakana, one of the major towns along Maiduguri-Damaturu Highway, where Boko Haram members abducted over 30 travelers on Friday. Listen to Governor Zulum of Borno State, who visited the area. Inside is a vehicle burnt by suspected Boko Haram members. COVID-19, new restrictions and civil servants to work from home. That's page 6. And NDLA arrests 148, seizes 3 tons of drugs in Kaduna. You have details of that on page 29. Bio.
Well, let's start with the appropriation bill. The National Assembly yesterday passed the 2021 appropriation bill to the tune of 13.588 trillion naira. Capital expenditure is to take 4.125 trillion, while recurrent expenditure is 5.641 trillion. Debt servicing is to gulp 3.324 trillion. The National Assembly also approved granting an extension for the capital component of 2020 budget to be extended to March 31st. By implication, it means that the 2 budgets will run pari passu, particularly in the first quarter, and the intention is to inject sufficient funds into the economy so as to accelerate the exit from the recession. The deficit of the budget is to be financed from multilateral and bilateral projects tied to loans worth about 709 billion. The budget pass had an increase of about 500 billion over the 13.8 trillion that the President laid before the National Assembly. Statutory transfers is to compose of 496.53 billion. 125 billion for National Assembly proposed by the executive was increased to 133.99 billion. Reports of the committees of the appropriation were harmonized, and the indices are that budget deficit is about 5.19 trillion, gross domestic product rate is 3%, oil benchmark is 40 naira per barrel, crude oil production is 1.86 million barrels per day, while the exchange rate for the naira to the dollar is put at 379. The National Assembly had at the back of its mind that oil price is hovering between $47 to $50. They will welcome supplementary budget during the year as a way of funding the initiative to accelerate the exit of the nation from recession. Governor Babagana Zulum has expressed disappointment that most of the attacks along Damaturu-Maiduguri Road happens within the 20-kilometer stretch from Aundo to Jakana. This is a distance of 20 kilometers, and accordingly, there are supposed to be 2 security points along that road. Incidentally, yesterday, when he went along there to go and inspect the location where some commuters were attacked, there was no security men, neither were there the Borno State Rapid Response persons. And the governor is lamenting that a lot of hazard has been happening along that road. You may recall that on Friday, commuters were attacked, and as far back as February this year, 30 persons were burned along that same road when they were attacked by the terrorists. There is the expression of concern that persons described as merchants of fortune had already launched a Bring Back Our Boys with the intention of profiting from the abduction of the GSS Kankara boys. The senior special assistant to the president of media publicity says it is shameful that such Nigerians have sought to profit from the abduction of the students. Garba Shehu described the creators of hashtag Bring Back Our Boys as lacking in patriotism. He said they had anticipated a long prolonged abduction, and therefore they will spend money to print T-shirts, 1 million T-shirts. And now that, thanks to Providence, the boys have been released, they should make initiative to refund monies to those who contributed to that nefarious campaign. The other concern is the incidences for the National Identity NIM registration. The National Identity Management Commission has shut down its offices in Lagos and Katsina. This is because there are incidences of people, what you can describe as a run-on their offices. People were rushing there to go and register. And accordingly, the Minister of Communication and the Economy has granted an extension for the registration linking NIN to SIM cards from 31st December up to January 19th. It may be recalled that the House of Representatives actually proposed that it should be extended to sometime in February. The initiative to link SIM is predicate about initiative to link data to the individuals and as a positive measure to reduce incidences and challenges of security. Those without national identity cards also have a period of 6 weeks within which to make that up. There are positive news coming. This day is speculating that there is likelihood that the academic staff of Nigerian universities are likely to call off their 9-month-old strike today. This day says that all the branches of the academic staff union across the federal university resolved to call off the strike on 2 conditions. 1, government pays at least 2 months of their salary arrears between yesterday and today. Secondly, undertake to offset the remaining by the end of January. So far, about 70 billion for unearned allowance and revitalization of the university are supposed to have been paid to the bursaries of the universities by today. ASU and the federal government are meeting today.
Quite interesting. About the NIMC, I'm wondering, when the 21st century, why can't we just do these things online? Give a link, people, this is COVID-19, the second wave is coming in and it's staggering. Yes. The numbers, coming out is staggering. When people gather in a place like that, what else do you expect? Can't we just do this thing online without people gathering in the same place? Is it not possible?
It's possible.
Technology it's on the high all over the world. Why do we need to go line up? These are millions of Nigerians who have to register.
Yes, taking into consideration that the NIMC itself were able to register only about 42 million in 10 years. So to try and register 616 people within the period of 2 weeks is...
616?
616. 616.
Okay.
I think million. Yes, is a Herculean task, and that is why there have been interventions to stop it. And particularly talking about COVID-19, the Presidential Task Force has asked government personnel from grade level 12 and below to stay away from work for 5 weeks. And the reasons are not far-fetched. In the past 6 weeks or so, we have had increased incidences that is pointing towards a second lockdown. And particularly, the chairman of the Presidential Task Force and Secretary to Government of Restoration used his own experience. His family, members of his family, 4 of his children tested positive, including an infant. And he said he was lucky, maybe he didn't test positive, because even in his home, he wears his face mask. Perhaps that is the saving grace. But the concern now is that there's already a second strain of COVID-19 said to be deadlier and more devastating, and it's affecting younger persons. And this is very critical. Already in Europe, many nations in Europe and across the continent have banned flights from United Kingdom, especially Southeast England, where the new strain has been identified. So we need to be up and doing about COVID-19.
And I've said that this is a holiday period.
Yes.
From now to almost January period, ending, yes. People that have traveled are coming back. And so what time do you have to do all these things?
The good thing is that on the cautious side, the Presidential Task Force have put in measures in place controlling public gathering. Even restaurants, pubs and several others are to remain closed. Restaurants are only to provide home delivery services and takeaways only. This is to limit gathering. If you have to gather for religious purposes, they have limited the gathering to 50 persons. And if it has to be more than 50 persons, it has to be in open door, not indoor enclosure. These are all measures to stem some of the necessities of public gathering that comes towards this end of the year. There will be marriages, there will be funerals, there will be church services, there will be worship services.
All right. Well, happy is the news that the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy has now extended the deadline for the integration of SIM cards and national identification numbers. I recall on this program when the announcement was first made that the deadline of 30th December had been given. I said that was an unrealistic deadline. So why issue an unrealistic deadline? So whatever has played out now, including the surge that you have seen at various NIMSI offices, everything was reasonably foreseeable. And happily also on Good Morning Nigeria, we had a DG of NIMSI who was our guest, and of course we also had the telecom operators having their chairman of the association also being with us, and they discussed and said, well, fine, this is a matter that they will have to consider. So let's see how all of this pans out in the next 3 weeks. But the question of issuing unrealistic deadlines, it's unhelpful, usually in public policy. The other one, which is perhaps more serious, has to do with the measures outlined by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. I'm a bit worried, and I believe every person should be worried about the announcement that civil servants on grade levels 12 and below should work from home. And I'm worried for a number of reasons. One is the hotspots, as they will refer to them, of transmission to be found in government offices or amongst the general populace. Because the behavior you'll find in various communities, whether you go to the marketplace, whether you go to neighborhoods, you go to sports or otherwise, some of which are now being said to be closed, or just the general attitude of people is such that the coronavirus, would find a way of spreading rather than being in offices where the workers are. Yes, people will come. How many persons come to the offices? When we had the lockdown, and officers of certain grade levels and below were asked to work from home, how many of them, in fact, worked from home? It was regarded as a holiday. You have given them another 5-week holiday, and in that process, another 5-week holiday, they will be roaming all over the place. And at the end of the 5 weeks, you will pay them their full salary? Where is their productivity? This is an economy that ordinarily should be functioning 28 hours a day, not 24, to play catch-up. So you've given them 5 weeks, you say level 12 and below, work from home. Which work is a level 4 officer going to do from home? Which work is a level 5 or 7 or 8 officer going to do from home? And when you see them, I'm not scandalizing any person, but the evidence is there. There's until recently, when I went to some Nigerian cities, you never saw people obeying the simple protocols of wearing a face mask. If you wore one, you look like an awkward fellow. So these are the same persons you are saying, go and stay away from work for 5 weeks. The person takes it as a holiday, traveling all over the place because there's no ban on traveling now. They say, government said we should stay at home. But more importantly, at the end of 5 weeks, doing no work virtually, you get your salary. I mean, I think we should have a better consideration for this. And at some point, there also ought to be consequences, if you ask me. Because what you find in the private sector is that on account of the downturn in business, follows, were declared. You know, that way persons will say, look, stay at home for a while. Some of them were placed on half salaries, and thereafter, we have seen persons losing their jobs, even in advanced economies. Yeah. So you're just saying, proceed on another 5 weeks of holiday. How many weeks or months did they have during the massive lockdown?
6 months.
We had, precisely.
I think from the perspective you have looked at it, I think it's logical because people are more likely to comply with the NPI at the offices because without masks, without sanitizers, you won't be allowed into the office. There are stricter controls within the office that are allowing people to go back into their homes and merge with the community that is not complying with the NPI measures. Exactly. So I think to that extent, I think it's logical.
Okay, Bayo, let's now go to the editorial. Yes, as CBN sets to revamp the oil palm sector. Let me just read a little. Experts have pointed out the price of a barrel of palm oil competes very favorably with the price of a barrel of crude oil, and yet there seems to be a deliberate lack of interest in harnessing these cash crops, which, like crude oil, when cracked, can yield a lot of derivatives that can be harnessed to improve revenue earnings from that sector.
Yes, the editorial is from leadership and is commending the initiative by the central bank to focus on revamping the oil palm industry in Nigeria. And it points out that presently Nigeria's capacity is about 700,000 hectares of palm oil, and the initiative is to boost it with another 250. Nigeria is 5th producer of palm oil around the world. Interestingly, Malaysia, who is one of the lead producers, got their seedlings from Nigeria. There was a time when Nigeria was one of the lead producers of palm oil. And like editorial is pointing out that there is, ironically, Nigeria abounded palm oil for hydrocarbon. And now, palm oil has ability to provide derivatives almost as many as hydrocarbon oil too. And therefore, they are commending the initiative by the central bank. But also, the National Palm Producers Association is also encouraging the initiative, and they want the attention to be increased, particularly commending that 1,000 hectares of land should be provided at least in 25 or 36 states that can actually produce palm oil. And if they set that target, it will go a long way to diversifying our economy, and oil palm will be another resource of high foreign exchange.
When you go to Malaysia, on the way from the airport to the city of Kuala Lumpur, you find palm plantations. Palm plantations. You just ask yourself, what happened to us? If you are landing, yes, if you are landing at the airport, say in the southeast, and if the airport is out of town, you will see rows and rows of palm trees. But where are we? In Malaysia, just as we talk about crude oil here, I would say upstream, midstream, and downstream. That's the way they also talk about upstream, midstream, and downstream. Palm oil.
Yes.
And they have collaborative research ongoing. I don't know, perhaps they have concluded them now, for medical derivatives from palm oil, from top universities from the US and elsewhere in Europe. So people are not realizing, just the same story we are talking about palm oil in terms of the relative value to crude oil. It's the same thing you would say about honey.
Yes.
If you were to say a barrel of honey is far more expensive than a barrel of crude oil.
Yes.
I mean, Juba, I'm sure you know that.
Yeah, I do.
Precisely. And you are wearing good. You are wearing good. I believe that it's also a barrel of honey should be more expensive than whatever weight, whatever measure.
To my house, I said, no, I'm not wearing gold. It's just costume.
Okay, well, she says she's wearing costume, so that's all right.
Maya, thank you so much for coming this morning. It's been a pleasure having your input. We'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation will begin.
Always remember, this man I has activities and would really like you to walk. You deserve a break. Even in the hustle and bustle of the day, you can indulge in a cup of 3-in-1 Cadbury Hot Chocolate. Cadbury Hot Chocolate. Indulge. You deserve a break.
the counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youth, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Do you know that 35% of every girl child and women are raped on a daily basis? Some are killed in the process, some take their lives in shame, others remain emotionally dead for life. It is sad. This culture is not ours, definitely not African. How did we allow bad culture to infiltrate and take over? Even if you lack fear for the law, what of fear of God? And you, why do you cover up rape acts when